All right, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for sharing your Saturday with us on this wonderful um 55 degree on this side of Florida. With me, I'm wearing a sweater. It's unlikely to see me wearing a sweater in Florida, but I'm enjoying it. I am I'm excited for today because I love learning and we always need a time together when things are in a different spot. And I will start in prayer, but I wanted to just say hello. And I have two boys who decide to make noise right now. 1 second, please.
That's okay for now. It's life.
Yes. So I'm yours truly, Funa Badet, the Director of Intercultural Ministries, and I'm happy to be with you this afternoon and this morning to some of you for this session. And if you are watching it afterwards, welcome and I hope that you get what you wanted to receive in this. Before we start in prayer, I am honored to have Dr. Jonathan Kim with me. Dr. Jonathan Kim is a colleague and a mentor to me as well. As most of you do not know, I graduated from TIU, both my bachelor in Christian ministry as well as my master's in leadership with Trinity International University. And Trinity Evangelical Divinity School is where Dr. Kim is at right now. So prior going to TED, Dr. Kim served with Wycliffe Bible Translators for 20 years, doing Bible translation, church planting, leadership development in multi-ethnic settings, short-term missions, and other various cross-cultural trainings in many places, including the Caucasus, West Africa, and Canada. And while serving with Wycliffe, he overcame several language and cultural barriers and ended up speaking multiple languages. He taught courses such as language and culture acquisition, sociolinguistics, developing intercultural competency, adult education, cultural anthropology, and missional leadership. He also served as a pastor near Baltimore, MD. He is the director of the Doctor of Ministry program at TED, which is Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and an associate professor of pastoral theology. Dr. Kim and his wife Bonnie have three adult children. So yeah, I am honored that he's sharing his Saturday with us, as you are all also doing. And we are all getting ready to learn together and embrace this afternoon as we create history together. I always believe that we create history together. So let us pray, and Dr. Kim will join us. Dear Lord, we honor you. We praise your name, O Lord. In moment of chaos, you allow us to be still, Father God, and you grant us inspiration and language, Father God, to understand one another and understand each other's culture. I thank you for today that we are all here in this place to learn together as you equip your servant, Dr. Jonathan Kim, to share with us what you have inspired him to share with us as we learn and come out better leaders for tomorrow. We love you and honor you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Dr. Kim,
Amen.
welcome.
Amen. Thank you, Funabadad, for that introduction. Well, good afternoon, all, or good morning, wherever you are, depending on where you are. I feel honored and privileged to be invited by my dear sister and colleague and student and leader, Funabadad. When I mentioned about my passion and my actually dissertation about building multicultural team, Funa and we got so excited, and this idea kind of came out. And I said, well, I can probably facilitate a seminar or webinar for the Church of Brethren. So this is how it began. And by God's grace, and I'm so happy and honored to be with you. Oh, not in person, but online. And this is recorded, and I know, and this is like live streamed. So I'm going to actually share PowerPoint, but before I do that, why this topic? Well, just to briefly mention, I've been spending bulk of my adult life uh, after 19 in the cultures that's different from my own. I was born and raised in Korea, but went to Canada when I was 19 and had to learn language, obviously English, and then later Russian and Azerbaijani and Urdu, and so I happen to speak five languages, not all of them fluently, no, but so my definition of multilingual is that you don't speak any one language fluently. That's my definition of multilingual. But I've been wrestling during my adult life as a missionary, just a follower of Christ, or pastor, or even professor now. When these God's people come together and say have a team, what is really going on? So let me share this PowerPoint. By the way, throughout the session, if you have a question, feel free to post it in the chat box, and Funa will kind of collect, and I'll have about 15 minutes toward the end of our session for Q&A, and then Funa will kind of select what's critical to our discussion. So feel free to post it in the chat box if you have questions. Okay. Uh, see. Yeah, so I titled this webinar, uh, Why Can't They See What I See? And differences in linguistic and cultural perceptions and how we can navigate through them. So what's the matter? What's the question? Well, I know in the, like, say, Church of Brethren context, or in any missions context, or even local church, if the makeup of congregation is kind of rather multicultural or multi-ethnic, um, building trusting and cooperative relationships enhances work effectiveness and increases a team's likelihood of success. But I observed perceptions of what constitutes a good working relationship may vary among multicultural team members. In other words, perceptions of what it means to build and how to do so may differ from person to person based on their um, different linguistic and cultural practices. So this is the what's the matter part. Now, defining culture. So this is like one of the many definitions. This is, let's say, working definition. So culture is the learned value and behavior. Well, it's just, that's not shared by a group that is passed from one generation to another, and that changes over time. So culture creates a sense of belonging, obviously, um, and identity, and provides stability and security for individuals in social relationships. Now, we're not gonna have time to actually to dissect or unpack this definition, but you know what, you get an idea what this like working definition of culture. Let's see. Um, yeah, so now we have this metaphor that we're gonna be using. Um, let's see. Onions. You're familiar with all this metaphor, right? So onions, kind of peeling layers. You constantly peel, but you never actually get to the bottom of it. Or glasses, a pair of glasses. You kind of um, see through your cultural greed. So are we born with cultural glasses?
Of course, no. Gain them.
Continue. Okay.
Gain them.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, wow.
That's
I
their
kind of,
Spanish.
there we go. Yeah. And then iceberg. So we say what you see is the tip of the iceberg. So the problem with the iceberg is there's huge, way more
Right.
than we can see below the iceberg. So we really see the tip of the iceberg, hence the expression. Fish in a fishbowl. So someone says, you know, by the way, do you see, Funa, this PowerPoint? Okay. So my screen keeps saying continue to share. Yeah,
It's
so
showing.
yeah, uh, you know, to describe what culture is to someone, it's like asking fish to describe water. So you're so engraved, you're so familiar with your own culture. It's extremely difficult to describe. So that's the metaphor.
Mhm.
Um, okay, now let's continue. So let's see. A person comes to a meeting half an hour after their stated starting time. I'm not sure if you have experienced this. I've experienced this many, many times, multiple times. You know, being in what we call time-oriented culture or event or task-oriented culture, I've kind of I've kept try to be punctual, only to realize people start to come like 10 minutes later or 15 minutes later, or even 30 minutes later. Okay. At the end of of a meal, people belch audibly. Now, depending on what culture you're in, it can mean, wow, the person is really satisfied with the meal. Or wow, he or she is so rude. How could how could he do that? The young person you are talking to does not look you in the eye. Again, depending on the culture, the interpretation may vary. A male guest helps a hostess carry dirty dishes into the kitchen.
They're American.
Now, how would you interpret that? Your interpretation, polite or rude? You're invading sacred space, if you know what I mean. A group of international students from Asia come to your home, but no one wants to talk. Wow.
Because they're respecting you because you're older.
Yeah, we'll take up later. Yeah. So power of perception really goes. Our cultural perceptions assign meaning to behavior, and the examples that I shared. Um, someone invited and had a great meal and belched audibly may be interpreted as that he or she is so rude, or wow, he or she was really satisfied. The meal was good. So the very behavior, belching after the meal, is not really good or bad in of itself. It's our interpretation of that particular behavior is the perception, the power perception. So communication then is a behavior interpreted. And similar behavior in another cultural context can have an entirely different meaning than what you assign it. So we call that misattribution. So reading the wrong meaning into behavior. Okay. So an important skill in cross-cultural adjustment then is to suspend judgment of other people's behavior until you have an insight or interpretation of the assigned meaning to the behavior.
Mm.
Because going back to the metaphor, whether the onion peel is at work or a pair of glasses or iceberg or fish in a fishbowl, we are so caught up without exception, like including me, with our own familiarity If anything is unfamiliar, we tend to immediately make a judgmental statement. So then important skill in multicultural or cross-cultural adjustment is to stay away from making that immediate judgment. Oh, she's so weird. Oh, he's so rude. Oh, how could he do that? Right? Suspend judgment of another people's behavior. Okay. Uh, so then you have stimuli, behavior. Instead of making a quick judgment, you pause and try to understand what's going on around the person and then response. Okay, so then we call that cognitive complexity. Simply put, asking questions outside of our limited cultural frame of reference. Why is it limited? Obviously, I'm very limited because my context is very limited. I was born and raised in a particular culture or language, and God created the entire world. And I do not have that perception. I only see through my own lens.
All right.
So that the very awareness that I do not have whole perception, I only have my own perception, and some other people may have their own perception, so that what I see is not always right. So that cognitive complexity uh, plays into understanding in a multicultural context. Okay, now, um, webinar like this, like in my course, Funa would know, I would often pause and actually listen to you. And I don't know, I gave you a chance to kind of post your questions toward the end of it. But if any of you have like a pressing question on any of the topic, feel free to kind of speak up. We have like 33 plus people. I think we can do that. Yeah. So instead of waiting till toward the end of the session. Okay. Now, there is such thing as ethnocentrism. Again, I assume that many of you are already familiar with this. Simply put, the common belief that the way we think, feel, and behave is the way, the way to think, feel, and behave. That's simply as ethnocentrism. Our culture becomes the measure and judge of all other cultures. I mean, again, I assume that many of you are already kind of aware, wow, that's very dangerous. But if it's left unchallenged, it can lead to an attitude of pride, prejudice, and superiority. Now, you may say, well, Jonathan, we wouldn't do that. We as Christians, like, we
Sure.
don't do that. We recognize other people's culture, their value, their worldview. But more often than not, in the mission um, agency setting, missions, cross-cultural mission, or even local church, or even in the Christian higher ed, this kind of my way is highway is actually more prevalent, sadly, than we can recognize. It's there. Okay. Um, let's keep going. So, understanding culture, then, okay. So the very outer layer, think about onion, is material culture. What we see, what we can touch, what we smell. And a little below is behavior, what we can still observe. But if you go a little further down, then we talk about value system. Um, right? Values. And then, okay, beliefs, worldview. At the core of understanding culture lies worldview. And the worldview is not really visible until you get to know, until you take time to study, to interact, to build relationship. Hence, the metaphor of onion, you kind of peel off constantly. It seems like a never ending to arrive, get to the belief system and worldview. Another way to look at it is iceberg. So this one here is the water line, and what we can observe, smell, and touch and see is above the water line here. But as you can see, iceberg is there's way more, whole lot more below what we can see, what we can touch, what we can observe. So underneath, you have assumption, value, beliefs, or geography. And at the bottom of the iceberg is worldview. Often that gives you meaning and purpose. Um, so, okay. Now, so above the waterline is obviously culture observed and culture submerged below waterline. Okay, now, before we go further, any comments, questions so far? I kind of went through quite quickly. To to some of you, this may be rather rudimentary. Others maybe kind of gives you something to think about. Any comments, questions? I see lots of chat box, but I didn't read it. I mean, comments on the chat box.
There's a question, it says, what kind of education by Jen Onda? What kind of education help with ethnocentrism, especially in settings where people truly don't understand that there are different cultures?
Wow, what kind of education training you mean?
Yes.
That is a very good question. And that's something that I'm wrestling with. I hope and pray that by the end of our session, 2 hour session, although it's really short, um, we may have some glimpse of what kind of training, what kind of education may be helpful. So, so for that particular question, I will kind of reserve the right to let this journey go till the end.
Okay.
For now. Any other questions? Okay. Um, let's continue. Oh, okay. So now shout out loud. What do you see? How would you describe what she's wearing?
One can say a scarf.
Scarf? Okay. Others?
A jacket or shawl?
Okay. Jacket or shawl? Yeah. Yeah. Keep
We cannot
shout
see
it
the
out.
picture anymore.
Oh, you can't?
Yeah, it's a black screen.
Oh no. Okay, so about that.
Hmm.
Let me do it again. Hmm. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so shout it out. What is she wearing?
A bathrobe.
A bathrobe?
A
Yeah,
robe.
yeah, sure. Anybody else? Okay, so this
Blue
is
checkered jacket.
a jacket. Did I hear jacket?
Yes, blue checkered jacket. Blue and
Okay.
green checkered jacket.
Okay, blue, green jacket. Okay. All right.
Bathtub.
Bathrobe.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard bathrobe twice and jacket several times and scarf once. Okay, so this picture is actually taken from Central Asia, particularly in Kazakhstan, real person. So to Kazakhs, this particular clothing is called halat. Now, halat is worn by, say, housewives there, even when they host guests. So then, people from, say, North America, when they're invited to a local home there, they're often embarrassed because we think that is bathrobe. We think that's like, did she just come out of shower? I mean, that would be very, very embarrassing. But to them, that is a normal household wear that they when they cook, when they do the house chore, even like hosting guests, that's what they wear. But to others, predominantly to Americans and Canadians for that matter, that looks like bathrobe. So when you see that, then immediate response would be, wow, that looks so weird. Why would she wear that? Because to some, you don't wear that, right? Okay. How about, let's see. Um, how about this one? How did you, what do you see? How would you describe that? The one in the middle.
A bowl?
A bowl? What kind of bowl?
Something like a glass bowl?
Ceramic.
Ceramic?
It
What
looks
would you use that for?
cereal bowl.
Cereal bowl? Yeah.
Soup.
Soup?
Rice bowl.
Rice bowl?
Sauce? Sauce bowl.
A
Sauce?
teacup.
Teacup? Whoa, who said teacup?
Jan,
Why? Why, Jen?
because that looks like an Asian setting, and I know a lot of people in Asian settings don't have handles on their teacups, and it's roughly the right size to hold a cup of tea.
Oh, wow, you guys are great. Okay, so I heard rice bowl, I heard cereal bowl, I heard teacup. This is actually okay. That's Jen. You have an incredible sense of cultural intelligence. This is actually, let's see. This is what is called rice bowl, 밥그릇 for Koreans, which is rice bowl. Cereal bowl for say Americans and Canadians, or some European maybe. But it is also tea bowl called kase for Kazakh. So Jen, you're right. This is actually tea bowl. Um, yeah. So what are we doing? Depending on how we see the same object, we describe differently. Okay. So let's see. Um, okay. Oh, how come it's not going? Let's go to the next slide. Okay, now here's some communication blunders. Okay, so Pepsi Cola. Come alive with Pepsi. When translated in German, Pepsi brings you back from the dead. Okay. Another one, General Motors tried to sell its Chevy Nova in Mexico. They quickly realized Nova in Spanish means won't go. So people won't buy. Okay, how about this one? KFC, it's finger licking good. In Iranian, it meant it's so good that you will eat your fingers. You don't want to communicate that one for sure. This is taken from real examples. Uh, so, um, okay, let's see. Phases of cross-cultural experiences. On the far left side, like your approach, the top one arrow is either you're open-minded, you accept rather than making a judgmental statement, and you trust, say, the other party. Okay, as this is what I always often believe. I mean, not often, always. People, regardless of where, what culture, what language group they come from, and regardless of their religion, okay, I'm talking about Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists, they are all created in God's image. They don't know God. The God we know, the God of universe, God of heaven and earth, God who created us. But they just don't know, but they are image bearers. So are we going to have open-mindedness to understand God's image bearers? Or are we going to be suspicious? Are we going to be afraid? Like, we're going to have a prejudice as if my way is the right way. So that's far left. We begin that journey. Let's see. And then differences, cultural differences, we immediately face. And then some of us, we are frustrated. I was frustrated many times, confused, and there's a tension or even embarrassment, right? It's kind of, we call that in education, disorienting dilemma. Like, this doesn't fit my world. I don't understand. I don't get it. And then you have a choice to make. So what kind of choice would you make in the midst of frustration, confusion, tension, and even embarrassment? General tendency, based on my experience, okay, of 20 years of cross-cultural ministry, I mean, the general tendency is to make a judgmental statement or being reactive. I don't understand. You're rude. How could you do that? How could they do that? How could, you know? So that's a general tendency. But you have a choice. That's a choice. You have a choice to make. So the top one, would you observe? Would you listen? Or would you ask questions? Or would you criticize because it doesn't fit to your lens, your worldview? Or would you even rationalize? They do that. In my culture, we don't do that. It must be something else is going on. Rationalize or even withdraw. We call that avoidance. You avoid, like encounter. So then the result would be the top one. You build rapport or you increase understanding. But if you are suspicious, if you're afraid, if you're prejudiced, and you criticize and try to rationalize or even withdraw, then you're alienated. You're isolated from people God called you to serve. Okay. uh, Up to this point. Any questions so far? Linda?
I just arrived home, so now I can talk to you.
Great. Sure.
And now there is going to be a recording available, right?
It is being recorded now.
This is wonderful. And I am wondering if you know of any children's picture books that incorporate some of the examples of words of wisdom, perspectives to help present to, various ages of children the wisdom that you've been sharing, because that's so crucial.
Wow, Linda, I'm not particularly aware of the children's picture book. Whether I am aware of like several resources, but there won't be children's picture book. What I know as a language and culture acquisition instructor, I know children's word list book, but it's not, it's word list. So we make up our story. I'm sorry, Linda. So maybe some other people, if you know, then please talk to Linda about that.
Yeah. And if I may give the example, maybe you gave it before I was able to join in, that when I had Hispanic students for most of my 38 years of teaching,
Yeah.
I was so glad that I learned in a class that you don't say, look at me when I'm talking to you, because the respectful way for a child raised in that culture is they would be considered very rude if they looked at an adult that was reprimanding them.
Right.
And so that was the one nugget that really, really made a huge difference for me. And I was glad I learned it. But you gave so many other wonderful examples. Thank you.
Right, Linda. Going back to, see, I was born and raised in Korea. So when I was raised in Korea, I was trained, I was kind of enculturated to not to look my teacher straight in the eye. If I do, you're so rude. But then what happened in my late teens when I went to Canada and I don't look professor or teachers straight in the eye, to them, I was perceived to be incompetent. Just Jonathan guy, he's like shy or incompetent or incapable. I didn't know that. I really did not know. I was trying to be polite. But to vast majority of North Americans, not being able to look at straight in the eyes would often translate it as being incompetent. So Linda, you're right.
It's in the perspective. And thank you. Was it Darla that just sent that amazing reply in the chat? Yes, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions so far? Again, I will give like about 10 to 15 minutes, I hope, toward the end of the session to give you Q&A, but in the middle of it, because if you leave it too long, then it may lose the the
Yeah.
essence. Yeah. Okay. Okay, then we'll leave it to the last one. Now, I have about 7-minute video clip. I was debating whether to actually watch it together or not, or to be included. I think it's not that long, so I hope the video and audio will play. So we'll watch together. It's about 7 minutes, a little less than 7 minutes, on Kenyan pastors' perspective on short-term mission. Okay, and then after that, okay, maybe take a break, and then when we get together, we'll divide you into small group. However, so maybe Funa, you can advise me after that. Is it better to take a break and then come back to the small group, or we just go all the way to small group and then take a break? So you just let me know which is better. Okay, so right now, yeah.
I think do you guys want to move forward or you guys need a break? Because either way works for me.
Okay.
Move
So then,
forward will be better.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
only 7 minutes.
Okay, so go ahead. Okay, let's see. All right. I have, okay. Right, you see, okay, the next one, this one is the one. So we'll watch together, okay?
How would you feel if Paris Hilton visited your neighborhood and stopped by your house and then reported to her crowd, wow, these people have nothing. Well, I spend more money on clothes than they have to buy a house and a car with. And how would you feel if she and her friends then came by and decided that they wanted to remodel your house or rebuild it? You might let them, but would it make you feel like you were cared for, or that they liked you when they had their video cameras going? And wouldn't you wonder, who are they going to show these videos to? Their friends, who are all then going to say, wow, you're right, these people live in mid-income squalor. Maybe that isn't a very good example, but I'm sure that when those rich celebrities left, you'd feel demeaned and humiliated, wouldn't you? And you'd probably wonder, who all is going to see those videos that they took of me? Well, I think that you get the idea of where we're going in this session. We're going to tackle a very sensitive and a controversial issue in missions today, the short-term missions. I was going to call it a fad, but you know what? It may be here to stay. You may be asking yourselves now, short-term missions is sensitive, it's a controversial issue. Why? Well, you'll understand by the end of this session, I'm pretty sure. Ask yourselves this question: what does short-term missions accomplish long-term? Bearing in mind, our instruction from God is to make disciples who make disciples. Let's listen to what Pastor Oscar has to say on short-term missions from North America.
Short-term missions, I think two things need to be said about them. First is to say that they have a place, and it's been amazing to see the impact they've had on, many who come from this culture going around the world on short-term missions. But that's one perspective. I think there are studies that are beginning to come out and say that 2 years after the short-term mission has taken place, everything is forgotten and very little remains. There's a question of, should the resources of the kingdom be utilized this way? With HIV, with poverty, with all the other needs we face around the world, should we be pouring $1 million or $2 million to take kids around the world on short-term missions? Or is there another way to do this? I think a third thing, to say, questioning the short-term mission model, is from the perspective of oftentimes the receptor community, we who the short-term missions come to. How do we understand short-term missions? And there are troubling questions there. I'll give you an example. 13-year-old kids coming from your educational system come with a fix-it mentality, and they come with an assertive, put your thoughts on the table mentality. And they come into our context, and they're just being good Americans, but they come to tell us how to do ministry. And they never listen. And they come and they have answers on how to fix us one more time. And these are, 13-year-olds coming for 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, they want to resolve our problems. There's a troubling side that so many short-term missions are driven not really by a passion for the two-thirds world. They're driven by a passion to, keep up with the Joneses, the church down the street that sent its short-term missioners and its youth to the most exotic places in the world. And so we have to do that, otherwise our youth will go. They're driven by a part tourist mentality, they're driven by a desire to engage the kids and have an exciting, dazzling program that will get them, keep them coming to church and keep them coming to the youth group. And we're the ones who seem to pay the price to entertain sometimes. These kids come, they have no cultural exposure. They don't know how to relate across cultures. I mean, relating across cultures is daunting enough, even for us as adults. 13, 14, 15, 20-year-old kids, they have no clue how to do that. And it can be very offensive on the field. Another troubling question is, we as the local receptors within our traditional societies, where a guest is received with grace and honor, We have to halt ministry and halt church to receive these people for 2 weeks and to host them. And constantly during the, Northern Hemisphere summer months, we are in the business of tourism, and we are in the business of hosting all these hundreds of kids who end up in Nairobi. We see them all over the place, walking the roads in the communities. We are in the business of hosting them. And it's a major distraction from the task that is before us. Yes, short-term mission works, kind of, but we really do need to have the courage to go back to the drawing table and to ask, even though it is so popular, isn't there another way of doing this? Can we not craft another way of helping people get a sense of calling into missions, a sense of awareness of what the rest of the world is like? There must be another way.
Why don't Africans and Amazon tribal peoples and missionaries just say, no, thank you, if short-term doesn't help?
It would be difficult for us as Africans, however, to say no to short-term missions. And part of the reason for that is cultural. We do not say no to relationships. We want a relationship with the church in the West. We want to be good hosts because everything in my culture teaches me to receive the ones who come in the name of the Lord with grace and to embrace them and to hold everything I'm doing so that I can receive them well and receive them with honor. So as long as you are sending, we will never be able to say no. Our culture doesn't allow us to do that. And we don't know how to speak assertively into your culture and to say, brothers, we don't want short-term missions. And it's not that we don't want short-term missions. Maybe we want a short-term mission rethought, mature people who are willing to listen and to learn, who already a filtering process has taken place, and these people are already definitely going in the direction of full-time ministry engagement in one way or another. But our culture doesn't allow us to say no. We don't know how to say no. And we cannot say no to a friend that we want to embrace and love.
Okay. Now, okay, so why don't we, okay, for the next one here, why don't we at this point divide us into how many do we have? Not, like we have 33 plus
We
people?
have 20 participants.
Or 20? Okay. So then let's say, can we divide into like 5 groups of 4? Would that work? And then in your group, based on the video you mentioned, you watched, go through the 3 questions. So I'll give you little less than 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so at this point, we'll divide the group into, say, 5, and in your group, talk about the 3 questions. You can take a screenshot, or I don't know if you distributed the PowerPoint, whatever works for you.
So I can share the link of the PowerPoint or
Yeah, so for the sake of the group discussion, you can even take a screenshot or distribute whatever it works. And I'll call you back in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Or a little less than 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Should I click stop and join?
Yes, the group I've been assigned.
Yeah. Okay, so
You can choose your phone. Group. Hello, Dan and David. Let me grab the PowerPoint. So the question. So the question is as follow. What is the problem that Pastor Mary identified with the attitude of the 13-year-old boy? And why is it difficult for Kenyans to say no to what they don't like? What character trait does Pastor Mario want to see in those who come to serve? Do you guys remember the
I believe if they say no, they may lose that friendship that they were trying to build with them that can benefit them in the future.
Okay. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Orlando, do you want to add to
And
that?
I can relate it there outside my culture too. I'm from Guatemala,
Okay.
and we always pleased when people come and try to help us. And sometimes we have people with attitude that 13 years old, like they can fix our problem without see exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And we just sometimes to not try to not push them away.
Yeah.
We don't take the chance to say no, to not feel embarrassed, or
Yeah.
sometimes to not feel like we not appreciated,
Mm.
or to not feel like we are not into that group, like we are not welcome. So that is why I can relate it
That's
to the
excellent.
pastor.
That's excellent,
Continue.
Orlando. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. You actually put your finger on it, like right on you nailed it on the head. Uh, Yeah, Esther, do you want to add to that? I mean, I heard Pastor Oscar saying particularly that we don't say no to visitors. We don't say no to our friends. Um, we are like so it has to do with the hospitality. To say no to visitors who came to serve them would be very rude, and uh, that's kind of against their cultural value. He did say. So, Lando, you saying you can identify with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So then, even though it may be inappropriate to say Kenyan culture, they wouldn't say no to that inappropriate.
Sorry, that's all I heard.
Should, sure. Should we go ahead to the second one? Why is it difficult for Kenyans to say no to what they don't like?
Sure.
Well, the quote stuck with me when he said, "We don't say no to relationships." That really, I thought that was beautiful. But at the same time, if that ends up with them believing that they have to accept whatever judgmental behavior comes their way, then that's a problem, I would say.
I think it culturally, I think well, I'm not gonna generalize the case, but I'm Haitian, and Haitian
Mm-hmm.
are not really good at setting boundaries. And I think that might
Mm.
be the issue because it's okay. I don't want to say no to the relationship, but I have conditions.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna
Yeah.
bring young people with you, make sure they are trained in our culture, number one. And number two, make sure
Mm-hmm.
whatever value they're gonna bring, it's something that will add to us, but not taking it away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if when we bring faith to a group of people that might not have known him, if we're gonna solve all their problem. And I think this is something Christianity, maybe I'm being biased, but I feel this is a problem with Christianity. People think once you accept Jesus, or if you come from a more developed country and you come preach to them, you're gonna solve their problem.
Mm.
And I don't think that is
Mm-hmm.
necessarily true. I
Hmm.
can come to you and
Yeah.
bring the Jesus that helped me to be where I am. Yes, I had more some type of privilege, but the same Jesus I serve, you're gonna serve him, and I'm sure he can give you some
Amen.
strategies and some open doors that you can get out. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the expectation and also a lack of boundaries. If they expected
Mm-hmm.
the people that are coming to solve the problem, I think from right there's an issue. They're not gonna be able to solve all their problems. And he said it different
Mm-hmm.
way, different time. He mentioned solve the problem. And I'm like, okay, what type of problem are you talking about? Is it the cultural
Mm-hmm.
problem, or
Mm-hmm.
do you think these people come and they feel superior, or do you, as the people, you receive them and
Some of the tensions are not so much cultural as in like Black American, white American, or anything like that. It's more the tension of education, because that's a tension. Um, Financial status, that's a tension too. So we there's and then of course the denominational backgrounds that we bring to our church. That's another tension. And we kind of just navigate through it um, when we come to it as best as we can. And so far, we've done pretty well. But those are other tensions that come when you have groups that are mixed together. I think it's and I'm departing a little bit from what you were saying, but I think that the biggest thing is how we handle it and the relationship that undergirds it.
Mm.
And so what you said about the gentleman from Cameroon, like he knows you guys care for him, and you guys know that he cares for you, and so you're able to handle and negotiate those challenges a little bit better than if there was no feeling of care or concern. I think it's the same thing with my home congregation, is that, we may not get it right. We may say things, do things. But because we have a sense of care for one another, we're able to navigate that. I do have a short example of that. So one of the guys from our congregation, he's a little rough around the edges, whatnot. And he said something to one of the ladies of our church, and she didn't handle it well, as is appropriate, right? So I talked to him. I was like, hey, if that was your sister, you wouldn't tolerate that. And then he, of his own accord, the next Sunday made a public apology. And so, and then the girl was like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And he's like, no, it's not okay. And I'm your brother in Christ. I shouldn't do that. But the only reason why I think that happened is well, there's a couple. One, the Holy Spirit working within our body, and two, the feeling that it's okay to admit that we've done something wrong, and say I'm sorry. Like, no one's going to judge you harshly for that. The opposite, you're more endeared in our congregation. But people need to know that that's going to happen, in order to be able to handle the messy stuff of crossing cultures and stuff.
I think we're supposed to, oh, we have 50 some seconds left.
Thank you though, because that's really deep and insightful, and I appreciate that.
Really appreciate that.
I went to the wrong room.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You just had an intercultural tour. That's all.
Exactly.
No problem. This is a real lesson.
Yeah.
An
in
intercultural
action.
tour.
Yeah.
Went to the room one.
So everybody's kind of going back to our main room.
Everyone is coming back. Yes. They
Okay.
had 60 seconds.
Okay, great.
Hi, Fonda.
How are you, Orlando? So good to see you.
Very good. Good to see you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Okay, so as people coming back to the main room, let's just take up from, like, say, whoever would be representative in your small group. What did you discuss for the first question? What is the problem that Pastor Oscar identified with the attitude of the 13-year-old boy? Anyone?
Well, I think I put it as sense of superiority, though I don't think that he meant it to be. We come in with a confidence and we can fix this, which can come across as being superior.
Sure, it can. Sure, it may. It may be unintentional. Okay, so we have to give him benefit of doubt. It's not that he's intentionally I'm superior. It may not. It's simply he may not be might have been familiar or how to portray himself, or just blindsided simply. Any other group? Same. Why? What is the problem that Pastor Oscar identified with the attitude of the 13-year-old boy?
We also think that sending 13-year-olds on a cross-cultural mission without any kind of prior training or anything really doesn't make sense, knowing how 13-year-olds are. And that to set it up more as you're going on a learning experience to learn to know brothers and sisters somewhere else and have a lot of training ahead of time on what that's going to look like in another culture. And we're not even sure any kind of the foreign cross-cultural experience at that age in a group is helpful unless it's extremely well planned out.
Yeah, Jen, someone mentioned about what kind of educational methodology or training be helpful, beneficial for such topic as this. And then you mentioned some sort of cross-cultural training, understanding each other would have been helpful for him. And we wouldn't expect 13-year-old boy to be mature necessarily. We just know. Yeah. Why is it difficult for Kenyans to say no to what they don't like? Any other group that didn't mention?
Well, we did talk about the fact that he made the statement, we don't say no to relationships, which I thought was beautiful.
Yeah.
And then Funa, I think you popped in and said that it's a question also of setting boundaries.
That was Sister IL. Dr. Joe mentioned that. And from
Oh, I am so sorry. I thought your box was lit up then. My bad. Sorry, IL.
No worries. Don't worry. People confused us together a lot. It's fine.
Well, for that was your wisdom, Sister IL. Maybe let me just turn it over to you then, please, please.
I was telling her, I don't want to generalize the case, but us as Haitian, we love hosting people, but I think a lot of time we not good at setting boundaries. It's okay you coming for help. I want this relationship, but this is the set of rules I want. If you're gonna bring somebody who's 13, it has to be somebody. So I'm talking about mission trip. It has to be somebody that you know had a tangible relationship with God that can, instead of fooling around when they get there, but to attract younger people to this gathering instead of making it more about themselves, because we know teenagers are good about making things about themselves. And I feel like if there's boundaries set ahead of time, that will make it easier on both parties. You know, you here to help, not to add to the load. Even though I receive you as guests, but I want you to understand, as a guest, I expect you to participate in the work, not to make the work harder for me.
Right. Yeah. Great comment. Since we have I don't want to rush you, but since we have a lot to cover, let's take up the last one. What character traits does Pastor Oscar want to see in those who come to serve? Anyone?
How about humility?
Yeah,
Humility?
We'll definitely talk about that for the remainder of our time.
Servanthood.
Jin or anybody?
Servanthood.
Servanthood. That's related to humility.
Yep.
Yeah.
He also mentioned something about it has to be somebody who's close to be a preacher or a minister. So he's really focusing on people that are mature in the work, I think.
Okay. Yep. Point. Yeah. Okay. Great. So let me continue. Okay. Let's see. So that's what we talked about. Now I'm going to go through what we call cultural categories for us to have a little more solid kind of ground to understand what's really being played into culture. Let's see. Again, many of you may be familiar with this power distance. So simply put, low power distance on the left side and high power distance. Say I'm a professor at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. People who come from high power distance, they are not, and I see that, able to call me Jonathan. They would call me Dr. Kim, even though I say, we are colleagues, call me Jonathan. But they are very difficult time to call me by first name. because they come from high power distance. The power distance between professor and students are greater. So there should be some distance should be kept, to simply put. That's power distance. By the way, we didn't take a break, by the way. Should we take like 5 minutes break before we get into this, and then we just finish all the way till the end? Funa, what do you think?
I think that'll be great if anyone need to use,
All right, great.
anything, drink some water or stretch.
Sure.
That way we can.
Yeah, so before we get into that categories, let's take would 5 minutes to be too short, or 10 minutes would be better?
Let's do 10 minutes, and if we
10
come
minutes,
back
okay.
early, we'll
So
begin.
we'll come back 12:55 or Central Time. So 1:55 Eastern
1:55.
Time. Sorry. I try to be contextual here.
See you guys soon.
So 1:55 in 10 minutes. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Forget. I can't get audio. I can't get audio on the computer. Can't hear it, and I can't get video.
But I can hear
Now,
you. I can hear you, Dan.
okay.
I can hear you. Can you
Okay.
hear
Thank
me?
you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Yes. All right.
We are on a break, like 8 more minutes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, brother.
You got 30 seconds to get out of there.
Okay, great. Our break is over. Well, let's continue for the remainder of our time. Okay. So, yeah, power distance. I'm not going to go through like one by one due to time, but rather I'll just explain. So that's what power distance is. So when I joined Wycliffe in Canada, Wycliffe is very kind of low power distance culture, meaning director, we call each other, everybody by first name. We do have a lot of PhDs, doctors. We never call each other doctor so and so. We just call everybody by first name. And that was quite a learning curve for me because I grew up in the high power distance culture. Now I'm very used to the degree that I ask my students to call me Jonathan. And even so, some students have difficult time call me Jonathan, but rather call Dr. Kim. So that's a power distance. Another one is collectivist versus individualist. Again, collectivist on the left side, we consciousness is stronger than I consciousness. So interestingly, if you're coming from collectivist culture, referring to your own children, you tend to say our children, not my children or our child, our son, our daughter. When I speak myself, but if you're coming from individualist culture, you say my child, my son. And even the language shows. So we consciousness versus I consciousness. And then emphasis on belonging to a community or membership is ideal, but the individualist culture is emphasis on the individual initiative and achievement. Leadership is ideal. Okay. Going on, universal particular. Universal culture says there's one way to do. I mean, focus more on rules and than relationship. Legal contracts, whatever you signed, holds authority. Whereas particular culture, the legal contracts are readily modified depending on situations. That's particular. Universal culture, it says there's only one truth or reality, that which has been agreed to. Particular culture says there are several perspectives on reality relative to each participant. So what I'm presenting here is not that one is right and the other one is wrong. That's not what I'm doing, to be really clear. Because you may say, depending on what culture you're from, well, there's only one truth, which is true. There's only one truth, the gospel. Okay, but there are many ways to present the gospel. So if you say this is the way to share the gospel, then you belong to universal, perhaps inadvertently, meaning unintentionally, because there are many ways to say share. And then say there are several perspectives on reality, which is true. You see, going back to our exercise on rice bowl, cereal bowl, and teacup, tea bowl, and going back to bathrobe or halat, that is one reality. one phenomenon, so to speak. But the way we look at several perspectives relative to each other participants, this is true too. So it's not that one is absolutely right and the other one is wrong. It's somewhere in the middle. Uh, that's the challenge we are facing. Specific and diffuse. Relationships on the specific culture are direct, to the point, purposeful. Diffuse, it's circuitous and aimless. It's seemingly. So then specific culture looking at diffuse culture may easily say, stop beating around the bush. Get to the point. I don't have time. What is your point? Whereas diffuse culture to the specific culture, you're so rude. I'm trying to make my point. I'm kind of gearing up. I'm warming up. You see the tension? So on the specific side, people are precise, blunt, definitive, and transparent. On the diffuse culture, people are evasive, tactful, ambiguous, even opaque. Now, the problem here is that when specific and diffuse culture come together, diffuse culture is often perceived to be dishonest. Okay, that's the problem. They are not. They're not lying. They're not being dishonest. It's just that they're not being blunt. So then specific culture would look at diffuse culture. Why can't you be direct? Why can't you be more transparent? You know, that's the tension. Okay. High context and low context. High context is relational, collectivistic, and then intuitive and contemplative. Low context, get to the point, direct. Stop being around the bush. This is low context. High context tends to be in countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Middle East. And low context tends to be in the most Western countries. Okay, so same thing. Just like here, diffuse and specific. Low context folks look at the high context. Stop beating around the bush. Get to the point. And high context folks to the low context, you're being so rude. You're being so blunt. Why can't you understand what I'm trying to say? Okay. Holistic thought and analytic thought. Holistic is more experience, anecdotal based knowledge, and analytical thought relies on abstract analysis and formal logic. So then holistic thought would value harmony and recognition of contradiction. Analytic thought would value avoidance of contradiction. Now again, even this one, it's not one way, one is right always over the other. If you look at the world God created, there's such thing as like a harmony in place. And avoidance of contradiction. There's some opposing thought, opposing ideas, opposing concepts coming together. So then oftentimes truth then is somewhere in the middle, really, because we don't have full truth, nothing but the truth. It's impossible. We as humans, I do not think that's how God want us to operate. And that goes to any one denomination, any one branch of theology, any one experience, any one theory. We do not have whole truth, nothing but the truth. We do not. Okay? If we do, we would be God. So, okay. Now, this is difference in thinking pattern. Here we go. The English, if you speak English language demands straight line thinking. Let me give an example. In your academic writing, in your any writing, you like introduce and you back up body and you conclude. Everything has to be kind of linear. If you're going this way, then you would be told stop beating around the bush. Get to the point. So English language demands straight line thinking. Whereas Oriental or Asian, some of the language, including some of the languages that I speak, Turkic language it's kind of spiral. So then beginning here, right here, you're talking weather, you're talking family, you're talking your mood, and you're kind of gearing up. And then this is the kind of punchline. But oftentimes to straight line thinker, before this spiral thinker get to the point around about this much, these folks are often dismissed by straight line thinkers. Why? Because this is again beating around the bush. It doesn't make sense to straight line thinker. These folks, to them, I am gearing up to make my point, but you're dismissing me, so I never get to make my own point. That's what's happening here. To some of the African, and correct me, and I checked this with my African colleagues, they call it sunflower. So here's the point here. So again, with the risk of generalizing too much, because I understand, when I say Africa, I'm making too much generalization. Okay, so West Africa is different from East Africa and South Africa is different. But again, generally speaking, with the risk of generalizing, here they say a story. They tell a story here and go back to the point. They say another story, go back to the point. Each time a story is told, they're strengthening their point, hence sunflower. But then again, going back to straight line and spiral thinker, each time a story is told, it appears to them you're repeating yourself. Now to the straight line thinker, repetition is big no-no. To the degree you have to apologize. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. But to these folks, repetition is strength. Because we are reinforcing your idea, your concept, each time it gets repeated by way of telling a story. Okay, so this is very interesting. Now, this is taken from my dissertation. So I studied a team culture, meaning this is a multicultural team. So based on the categories that I briefly introduced, team culture we call multicultural is very imbalanced, meaning this team culture is specific, meaning very goal-oriented, direct communication. There's one way to do, and very individualistic. Whereas some of the Brazilians and Koreans and Russians, they're more this side, particular. Well, contract may depend on the situation. We consciousness versus I consciousness. Relationship is kind of blown more than between professor and student. Actually, it's more than that. And then look at that. Local culture, this is Central Asian culture that I studied. They are closer to, say, Brazilian, Korean, and Russian than the team culture here. Do you see the discrepancy here? So I kind of visually charted. So then here, another team culture. So low context, meaning direct communication. Unless you tell me, unless you spell it out, make it crystal clear, how am I supposed to know what you're trying to say? High context? Well, the very reason, the fact that you're asking me to spell it out, you're not really my close friend, because my close friend would know me, even me, without spelling it out. So that's high context. But look at that team culture. We call multicultural team. They're heavily imbalanced toward low context, individual, and universal. Okay. Whereas other people, there are some people who are not coming from this culture. They're somewhere here. So right here in the middle, this circle would be ideal, right? This dotted line. I would call it utopia, no place. We will not have this completely centered ideal culture in this side of eternity. But the problem is, at least this say team culture, but I think we can safely say multicultural congregation too. The way they operate may be very imbalanced toward low context, individual, universal, and specific. So then the question then, can we move this team culture we call multicultural toward the center just a little bit, this line, okay, this one, so that folks on this side would not feel alienated. Okay, that's the issue here. Okay, so I kind of, oops. Oops. Yeah, so I had a like exercise placing this one. Well, I can't really, maybe I should. Okay, so placing this circle, like depending on where you'd place your current team, let's say this solid line, would you place this one somewhere here or somewhere here? And then would you place your own culture somewhere here? And then you see the difference, discrepancy. Now, if I just do the presentations mode, if I click it, then it just goes to the next one. So I'm not sure how but that's the point. So okay, so then force is to diverge from the current team culture, meaning going toward the center a little bit more with theological reason. Everybody talks about Revelation 7. You know, just every nation, or people from this great multitude from all nations and all that. So there's a theological reason. And then changing leadership. More and more people, leadership in the leadership level, come from, say, high context or diffuse culture or collectivistic society. So that forces toward the center a little bit. And then complement and accountability. So they're complementing each other and accountable to each other. And recognition of members' desire relating to the local culture. There's a force to okay, this is actually, this is so weird. This is actually converge and diverge. This is let me take a look at. There's a force to converge into to the current team culture. Okay, so this is okay, if you're not, this is forces to diverge from the current team culture, which is imbalanced. Okay, so let me see. So this is the imbalance. This is current culture. Okay, if you look at that, which is kind of imbalanced. So forces to diverge, meaning moving toward the center a little bit. Okay, that's what I mean by diverge. Is those forces. And then forces to converge to current team culture, meaning as it is imbalanced, are resistance to internationalization, and then Anglocentricity. This is really interesting concept. Anglocentricity basically states it takes the forms and functions of English language and the promise of what English represents or can lead to as the norm by which all language activity or use should be measured. Hence the name Anglocentricity. So that's the force to remain as imbalanced. Essentialism. Essentialism is basically it assigns innate characteristics to certain social groups. Okay, so essentialism validates prejudice and stereotypes against racial minority groups. So these are the forces to remain as is, kind of imbalanced, not going toward the center a little bit. Silence. Silence is very interesting. A lot of folks coming from collectivistic society or high context, they tend to be silent. Why? Because they learned silence is a virtue. Saying like empty can is loud. So if you're knowledgeable, if you're deep in thought, you're silent. But because of that, it remains as imbalanced. Pride, obviously, and cultural power and influence, meaning cultural power of, say, West, and it's got the resources, financial resources, and library resources, all the influence, and reverting to one's own culture. So we humans, we have tendency to revert back to our own culture because what makes uncomfortable, we resist. So that's the force. And lack of cultural training. Some of you, at least a couple of you mentioned, well, shouldn't they have a cultural training? So that's the reason. Okay, now, I went really quickly and we have about 13 minutes. Someone mentioned. Okay, separate normal. Okay, now, having gone through all these categories and imbalance of what we call multicultural team, heavily going toward low context, more individualistic, more specific, universal. There's one like we're about rules rather than relationship. Okay. Now, all of us, we need to ask then, so what? Well, so what? So what are we really talking about? Now, for the remainder, I'm going to go through so what question, and I'll open up to all of you for any pressing questions. So maybe Funa, if you can kind of select, or two or three from the list, then we'll take up. Okay, so let's go. So this is the thing. So what question? Broken things. Well, I mean, I'm gonna make this PowerPoint available, so you just read this later. But I want to get into Philippians 2. Two of you talked about humility and servanthood. This is what I always go back to. And this is a message version, so I'm going to read it quickly. Think of yourselves the way Christ Jesus thought of himself. He had equal status with God, meaning he's God, but didn't think so much of himself that he had to cling to the advantage of that status, no matter what. Not at all. When the time came, he set aside the privileges of deity and took on the status of a slave, became human. Having become human, he stayed human. It was an incredibly humbling process. He didn't claim special privileges. Instead, he lived a selfless, obedient life and then died a selfless, obedient death. And the worst kind of death at that, a crucifixion. Because of that obedience, God lifted him high, and honored him far beyond anyone or anything ever, so that all created beings in heaven and on earth, even those long ago dead and buried, will bow in worship before this Jesus Christ and call out in praise that he is the master of all, to the glorious honor of God the Father. I chose the message version because it kind of more comes alive. So then, what he gave up is the form of God. What we give up in the context of cross-cultural or multicultural context, the form of an intelligent adult person. I'm sure every one of you participating right now and maybe who will watch the video, you are educated, you're an intelligent person, you know how to behave, you know what to push, you know when to pull off. But can we give up the form of an intelligent or sensible person? What he became? Christ, nothing. God veiled in flesh. What we become? Nothing. The real me is we are child of God. It's hidden. So then the new form Jesus developed, he developed a servant, humbled himself, no greatness as the world sees it. The new form, a weaker member of a community God called us to. Okay? And we are resisting sometimes, oftentimes. What did it cost? Slow public execution as a criminal. What does it cost us? Pain, frustration, sometimes embarrassment, loneliness, and humiliation. So what? What he accomplished, eternal redemption, because of what he went through, we live forever by believing in him. We live forever with Christ. His humility restored ours, what is accomplished through us. Our lowering ourselves lifts others. And this is the point. In the context of multicultural ministry, intercultural ministry, by lowering ourselves, we lift others. So then God's power is released in our weakness. As a result, we bless them through our presence, through our frustration. Where it ends will be worth it all. Those who share in his sufferings share in his glory. Okay, so this is my recommendation. What do we do then to create safe environment? There are three things. Each one is I will just briefly mention that, but maybe we can, I don't know, have another time, I don't know. Psychological safety. Do I feel safe to be me? Am I going to be ridiculed if I don't look at you straight in the eyes? Am I going to be somehow disenfranchised, or am I safe with my own personality, with my lack of knowledge, or you know, or knowledgeable, or whatever? Spiritual safety. I know the Church of Brethren is beautiful, awesome, God honoring denomination. But what if somebody else coming from different denomination, different tradition, would she feel safe? Because that's spiritual safety. Cultural safety, with all these categories that I mentioned, okay, I come from low context. You know, you got to tell me, you have to spell it out. Would I feel safe? Would I be perceived to be rude or too direct, or vice versa. Someone come from high context, and trying to make my point. Would she be asked to be blunt, to be more direct, not honoring the cultural safety? So that's the thing. Create safe environment. Communicate different expectation, construct concrete action points to follow, and remember Philippians too. Okay. So now here at this point, I'm gonna stop and yeah. Yeah, I went through the very last minutes really quickly. So what do you think? I'm not sharing now, right? Okay.
You're still sharing.
I'm still sharing? Oh, I want to unshare. So Funa, can you unshare? Oh, here, stop share. Okay. Okay, so are we all in the same room, main room?
Yes, we are all here together.
Okay, great. Now, so any questions on anything that we talked about?
Please feel free to unmute yourself if you want to share, or you can put it on the chat and we'll read it so we can continue.
So Funa, I mean, if you want to highlight like one or two questions from the list, then you please go ahead, or it's open to everybody. If you have a pressing questions or comments even, feel free. You're completely safe now.
The topic came up in the chat about the Church of the Brethren's Separate No More paper and the fact that some congregations are interpreting it to mean that we will welcome you as long as you become just like us.
Okay.
In other words, we're not okay with this, salad bowl idea. We want the stew where everybody's alike. And I just read in the chat that there are some resources available in there, that it's been so long since I've looked at that paper that I'll have to look back at it with fresh eyes. But what you have offered is amazing food for thought, and I'm so glad that it's recorded along with the slide deck.
Thank God, Linda. Thank you for the comment.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with the Separate No More article, so I can't really comment on it. There's such a thing as Church of the Brethren culture that is really critical, that is God honoring. So there's some non-negotiable. But Linda, that's not what we are talking about here, right? Yeah, so acknowledging there's something that in the Church of Brethren that is so precious that you have to keep it. But there's other things that we can always improve. We can always fine tune. We can always go back to Philippians too. I think that's what you're talking about, Linda.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And by the way, somebody, I think it was Darla, included a link in the chat so that if you would like to take a look at the paper, there you go.
Oh yeah, please. I can get it from Funa.
Yes. I added the link, and I'll compile everything that we have to send to everyone who registered for resources.
That's awesome.
Oh, you did.
No worries. I appreciated the holistic thought and the analytic thought process, where you say holistic relies on experience based on knowledge, where analytic thought relies on abstract analysis and formal logic.
Right.
Can you dig into this a little bit, right quick?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Okay. So Funa, if I understood you correctly, experience is valid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's experience is valid.
Yes.
But oftentimes, experience can be, I mean, not oftentimes, most of the time, very subjective, meaning we cannot make any generalization based on person's experience. So let's talk about theory versus anecdotal experience. If it's good theory, I'm talking about social science theory, it has to be based on phenomenon, meaning real experience. So good theory should be drawn from the experience. But then the theory has a limitation. No theory is perfect. Theory is always fine tuning, or theories can be challenged. When that happens, where do we go? We go back to experience and then study further, right? So then this it's kind of pendulum, so to speak, going to theory to see if that works, if that explains the experience, and go back to experience to see. Uh, my experience is just not anecdotal experience, meaning too subjective. So then goes back to theory. What are others saying with the same experience or similar experience that I have? So it goes back and forth, strengthening each other, strengthening explanation of experience, and then theory based on analysis of experience, strengthening theory, or even come up with a new theory. Does that answer your question, Funa, or did I misunderstand?
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I also appreciated the quote from Vince Havner, "Broken things." I put it on the chat. God uses broken things, it takes broken
Yeah.
soil to produce a crop, broken clouds to give rain,
Yeah.
broken grain to give bread, broken bread to give strength.
Yeah.
I appreciated that quote. Thank you.
So,
Mhm.
oh, go ahead, Funa. Go ahead.
There's that shift. Examples, because I know I do that to you all the time, even though we are colleagues, like I always call you Dr. Kim. But if it started that way, it's hard to go down. But if it started as calling you Jonathan and you calling me Funa, and then all of a sudden I start calling you by your title, there's that shift that happened that we're no longer comfortable.
Yeah.
And that power dynamic, it become broken.
Yeah, but there's a redemption. There's actually there can be redemption in that. So all this like a power dynamic. So if you call me Dr. Kim when you call, and then I ask you, oh, Funa, call me Jonathan. You see, the point is, it's not so much Funa calling me Dr. Kim or Jonathan. That's not the point. The point is, I'm here to serve you. Whatever works. If you call me Dr. Kim and it serves you better, by all means, because one is not right and over the other, that's not the point. So redemption is, in this case, Funa, even if you started off calling me Dr. Kim, you can call me Jonathan. I would not be surprised. I would not ask you, oh, call me Dr. Kim. What happened to you? So then the outward expression doesn't matter so much because the essence here is I'm here to serve you for now. And you're here to complement me too. We are serving each other. We are strengthening each other. That's the core. As long as that is intact, all other things that we talked about category can be secondary.
One of the things that came up in our small group was just the importance of relationships, because when you have relationships with people across cultures, then you're able to forgive and um, ask for understanding, and that takes time, and you can't do it very quickly necessarily. And I think that's important. And we also talked about culture isn't necessarily about ethnicity. It can be about educational level or city, country. And some of the conflicts in our congregations actually come from those kind of dynamics. So it's really an intense issue.
Oh, Jan, you're right. You're right. So when I talk about culture, I mean, depending on who you're talking to, the context, it may be organizational culture, it may be corporate culture, it may be local church, whereas others may immediately take that as ethnic culture, right? So it is incredibly complex issue when you talk about even culture and relationship. Everybody talks about relationship. Doesn't matter. North, south, east, west. But then again, the thing that we didn't really touch, the degree to which they refer to relationship is different, even though everybody talks about relationship. But that's another matter.
And talking about the challenger about culture, and I think that's our main issue here in Vegas, because we are the first church of the brethren here in Vegas, and also the pastor of the church is my wife. So in that culture, this area did not used to have a woman, a women as a pastor. So and when it comes to the culture, it's a challenger now to teach them like God call us to work for his kingdom. So and to have my congregation or to have a new people come to the church, and they always call me a pastor, and I say no, I'm the pastor husband. I mean wife. Yeah, my wife is the pastor, and I'm just the servant, like you say. I'm not just a servant. I'm just like everybody here to work for God's kingdom. But to getting to that point is very hard because some people they still they come to me before they come to my wife, and I say no, she's the pastor, and whatever she say, and then I'm just follow, and I'm here. I'm not less than my wife, but now more than my wife, because we
Mhm.
are working together. But still, the one God put as the main subject to lead the church is my wife. So, and that's my point about the culture. Sometimes it's very difficult uh, to break those points, and to show that God, Jesus, he left his kingdom, and as a human, and he was a serving as a human, but he gave us the opportunity to be like him when we're going back to his kingdom, when he went back to his kingdom. So, and we had to learn at the same time teach who we are in the kingdom of God.
Yeah, Orlando, thank you for the comment. Right. So the essence there is not so much your called pastor or pastor's husband. Although organizationally that's important, but that's not the ultimate purpose. You said that ultimate purpose is to serve God, to glorify God, and to do the work that God called us to do. But in this side of eternity, you're facing that issue. People calling you pastor when you're actually, in fact, pastor's husband. When that happens, what do we do? Suspend judgment? Remember, go back to be gracious and maybe explain things and not holding them accountable for calling you pastor. But even if they keep calling you pastor, at some point you just maybe I don't know what to do. I mean, after so much like explanation, if you keep calling, then maybe let it be. But you just make sure that that's not who you are. But you're
Exactly.
there
That is,
to serve.
I think when you say like, call me Dr. Kim or just Jonathan. So it comes to like, okay, I'm fine. They call me Orlando, and I'm fine. They call me Pastor, but still the pastor is my wife. And, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I wanted to go back to Jen's question because we were going to return to it from the very beginning. She said,
Mhm.
what kind of education helps with ethnocentrism, especially in settings where people truly don't understand that there are different cultures?
Yeah, I've been wrestling with that for now, honestly. One of the best ways, very concrete way for me was like having that cross-cultural experience. Let's say maybe short-term can be one way, very concrete way, provided that you give enough training, and that's very relative. Meaning something like this, something that we talked about, some very basic cultural categories, danger of ethnocentrism, cognitively at least. But then cognitive learning doesn't do much unless we have it here in the heart and then we actually experience. So that experiential learning can be provided by way of, say, short-term mission or reaching out our neighborhood that may be diverse. Okay, actually do something about it and then come back and reflect on it. So that kind of a training program can be helpful.
We have Dr. Dala Deardorff, who also she's providing resources later on if anyone needs it.
Right. Yeah. 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 UNESCO story circles. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Well, I don't want to rush you. Well, for now, if there's no more questions, wow, it's been just wonderful interacting with you. May God bless you. May God bless you, Funa. May God bless the Church of Brethren, that we are representatives of God's kingdom, that people can taste a little glimpse of heaven, as we say,
Yes.
as you look forward to Revelation, that great multitude.
Amen. Thank you
May
so much.
may
Yes.
all of you taste that in your
Amen.
ministry.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kim. And I added a survey on the link and I'll also email it as well. So we can, it's just 10 questions and for us to know how we can serve you better and if we want Dr. Kim to return, what he can prepare for us for the table. I'm grateful for this workshop, especially this month of Black history, and we're talking about different cultures and language, how important it is to understand the dynamic. When we were going to the linear and the spiral, I started thinking about my 7-year-old because he speaks spiral and you have to give him time because the before he gets to the point he have to tell you from beginning to end where he's going and I tell him you are not from here because you have a mind that is so explosive and the story fits. So I had to learn patience because I became linear for a while because being here for so long I became linear and now I am learning to be spiraling and then going to the flower because the flower is also important to pause and start over to pause. So I'm very appreciative for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, beautiful people, you will get a copy of the chat as well as the survey and the PowerPoint, and then you'll be able to also watch it later, because it's live stream on Facebook and it will be on our website, brethren.org /intercultural. And hopefully we see you again, Dr. Kim, to grace us
Thank you for inviting me, Funa. God
more.
bless you all.
God bless you all. Thank you everyone for joining
Okay.
us and
Bye.
spending this Saturday with us.
Yes. What better way to spend Saturday morning with you?
Listen, it's been awesome. Blessing you. Oh, you guys are amazing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Blessing you. See you. Bye.
Thank
Very valuable.
Amen.
Blessing everyone.
Blessings, everyone. Just remember the survey. I'll also send it to all of you who registered. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you to my sisters. They stayed. My sisters joined. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your flexibility, Funa, and for helping me get into the meeting.
My pleasure, my sister. My pleasure. I'm glad you were able to join us. Yes. Have a good day.
And Barbara, hope I can talk to you for long about the song. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.